And we would like to say hello to all you car lovers out there. And this is the C&C Auto Show, and I am Aaron Clements.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are both here to give you information on ways to make your car, truck, or SUV safer, to make it more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And we do that partly by taking your phone calls. That's 805 to 10 Saturday mornings. And the number to call, 706-863-5800. That's 706-863-5800. And that is Eastern Time, 805 to 10 on Saturday mornings. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you that tuned in or logged in. And you can listen and learn more about your car and this show at ccautoshow.com. And if you're looking for a good, dependable auto repair facility, or if you have an on-the-road emergency, you can just go to ccautoshow.com, and about midway down, you will see a little thing that says Find a Shop, and you can click on that and be able to search for a shop that's right for you, and that is Napa Auto Care Centers.
That's right.
They are a great bunch. How many?
It's probably over 15,000 now.
15,000. So you're bound to find one that you like.
Yeah, we need to brush up on that number, see what it's at to now, or up to now.
It climbs every day. Okay, speaking of find a shop that's right for you, that's the theme of today's show.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we have finding the shop that is right for you. And on today's show, we'll be talking about what to look for in a good automotive repair facility. And that's whether you're on the road or have an emergency. You want to know what to look for to find a shop that you feel like you can communicate with, that you can trust, and that has the equipment and ability to service.
The equipment's kind of a plus.
It is, yeah. Yeah, you have to have the equipment, and the equipment for that particular vehicle is pretty important. Okay, we are ready to go. And John Ryan, what do you think we should do first?
Well, the only thing I like to do is telephone calls.
I agree. That's my favorite thing about the whole show is going to the telephone calls.
All right.
And where we're going.
Let's go over to David.
Hey, David, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Lovely.
I thought you were going to say blissful.
Blissful.
Great. Well, listen, I got a problem. I got a Trailblazer, a 2006 Trailblazer, and I got a notice on my dashboard. It said tighten the fuel cap. So I ended up getting a new gas cap and cleared the code, and I just got another code that said the same thing, tighten fuel cap.
David, did you replace both gas caps?
Both gas caps?
I'm just teasing you.
He was sitting there trying to think about
there.
that.
I was like, what?
The left and right.
Yeah. David, that vehicle has an emission system on it that's very smart. And it actually can set several different trouble codes. It can set a small leak, and it's under, say, I believe it's 0.006 of inches of water. Basically, if it loses that amount of pressure in the fuel system or the emission system, it can detect that. And then it goes on up. If it loses this amount, it sets this code. If it loses this amount, it sets this code, and all the way up to a large leak. So right now, it assumes that there is a gas cap loose because it has a very minor leak in it. So you did the right thing. You did kind of what most people would do. The immediate, relatively inexpensive thing, of course, to replace would be a gas cap. They do eventually fail because they have a big rubber gasket that kind of seals it against the filler neck. Unfortunately, it does sound like you still have another leak. Does this vehicle have a check engine light when that the message comes on, or is it just the message?
It didn't, though, just this last time, but it did eventually because I let it go for quite a while, and that did come on before I replaced the gas cap.
Yeah, David, it sounds like David needs a smoke test.
He does, absolutely.
Yeah.
David, did you ever have this code scanned by any chance?
No.
No.
Yeah, I did.
Was it a P0456 by any chance?
No, I don't know what they got. I went to advanced and
Gotcha.
I don't know what they got.
But yeah, Aaron, you're right. I think a smoke test would definitely find that. David, what a technician would do is, of course, if it did have that small leak code in there, they would smoke test the emission system.
Billy used to smoke, and we'd use him because he would blow smoke under pressure in there, and we could tell, you could find out what part of the evap system was leaking.
Right.
Then they designed the smoke machine. I'm glad they did, because Billy quit.
Yeah, they quit. He didn't get the patent on it either.
He did the American smoke out deal,
yeah,
and he hadn't smoked since, so we didn't have a smoke machine anymore, so we had to go buy one.
That's right.
And so now with the smoke machine, what it does is it puts smoke under pressure, and actually most of them have like a fluorescent color to it too, if needed. You normally don't have to use that part, but it holds the pressure, and you can actually see what part of it. And just in short, the evap system is just detecting if you're losing any vapors into the atmosphere.
Right.
And if you are, if it's a very small one, sometimes cars will say just fuel cap loose, because they don't want you to spend a lot of money on diagnosing a check engine light.
And it could be as simple
as
fuel cap.
a gas cap. So if it's a small leak, a lot of times they'll just turn that light on. But if it's large, it'll just cut the check engine light on.
Right.
Well, let me ask you another question in relation to that. I read, I was looking this up on the computer, and one guy said that he found that he tried to overfill his gas. He kept, when it cuts off, he kept doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was doing that, and he said, you're not supposed to do that because it'll mess up something.
It will. What happens, David, is there's no room for that fuel to go. So unfortunately, it's going to go to the next point, which is the charcoal canister, which is, of course, what removes the fuel vapors and the smell from the atmosphere when it vents. So he's right about that. However, that particular model doesn't detect if the canister's functioning, mainly because it has kind of a easier design as far as, the emission system. So with it's setting that small leak code, it's physically detecting it.
It'll put actual liquid fuel in areas that's only supposed to have vapor, and that'll cause things to go bad. So when it clicks, go ahead and stop. And he was correct. It can mess things up. But the part where yours is messed up is going to be a little different area.
Right.
You're going to either have an evap canister leak or a vacuum or a purge valve or
even the vent valves. But normally
vent valve is a very likely possibility. But you are going to need some diagnostic tests to determine which one is bad.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for the information.
Oh, Absolutely. Great question, David, and thank you very much.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.
Same here. Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800. John Ryan, where we're going to?
And we got about 2 minutes. Let's get Jeff on the line.
I believe we got plenty of time. Jeff, what could we help you with today?
Hey, guys, I've actually helped myself, but I appreciate your help anyway. About a year ago, I called y'all about my MR2 with automatic transmission, and I think y'all checked upstairs to see if y'all had any books on it. You didn't.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, it was the problem with my transmission was not shifting.
I remember this, Jeff.
Yeah.
Don't you remember talking to Jeff?
Absolutely.
We remember you. Yes.
Well, I accidentally fixed it myself.
Whoa, man, that is what was it?
Okay, well, I noticed when I put my battery charger on the thing, it wouldn't, work, and I'd have to boost it off my truck as well.
Okay.
Well, I was out there fiddling with the cable, and the negative cable was kind of loose, and I turned it, and when I put it on the charger, my wife decided she'd try and go crank it up, and she cranked it right up. She said, well, I'm going to try and drive it because, we're going to get ready to take it to the shop again because I've already been to the mechanic.
Right.
I remember.
But anyway, she was driving down the road, and it was shifting gears on its own. It was doing it like it did before it was messed up. Is that possible?
Hey, Jeff, this is a great this is going to be great right here because we love to hear back from people. But it is time for us to take a real quick break. Is there a chance you could hold on?
Sure.
All right, if you hold on, that way we'll get the whole story.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll be going right back to Jeff in Aiken with more of the C&C Auto Show.
Round, round, get around, I get around, yeah, get around, round, round, I get around, I get around, round, round, I get around.
And we do want to welcome you back to the C&C Auto Show, and asking a friend or coworker or family member is one of the best ways to find a shop that's right for you. But once you have that recommendation, check out the reviews on Google. Now, you do need to remember that almost any shop out there, I don't care how good they are most likely going to have some bad reviews. You
just
can't
from somebody that couldn't pay or something like
if
that.
If they're a large shop, got a large volume, there's going to be a few bad ones. As a matter of fact, I would be very, very suspicious if there's absolutely none. But you can weed through them and kind of tell from the overall rating or different information on the way they read as to the ones that are actually real. John Ryan, we were talking to Jeff.
We were.
And Jeff had a MR2 that he had called a while back with a transmission issue.
Yep.
And he has found the problem by accident. Jeff, what did you find?
Well, I found out that the cable was not tight, but kind of loose. You could turn it with your hand, but, you had to really strain to do it.
Right.
And I turned it to where it wouldn't, move anymore. And then I put the charger on it. And then by accident, my wife went out there and cranked it right up and decided to take it for a spin and went down the road with it. And it started changing gears on its own. She called me at work and said, "You ain't going to believe this. The MR2's changing gears on its own."
Wow.
I said, "No way." So, "Yes, it is." So when you get home, we're getting in the car. So don't even go in the house. We're going to drive it. So she took me around and drove around it, and it was shifting gears on it. She said, listen now. And it would shift gears.
So, Jeff, it sounds like to me that she fixed the car while you was at work.
Yeah, that's what it was. Well, she's always smarter than me. She takes after her dad. But when it comes to putting Christmas together, she fixed that. But I cannot believe, is that possible?
It is
just a battery cable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked just a minute ago on the break, and we vaguely remember talking about or telling you about the solenoids that are actuated, of course, by power and ground.
Right.
And we suspected a ground issue going to the transmission if it had its power, and then, of course, obviously the other way, if it didn't have power, we would suspect that. So with it having a loose or poor connection to the ground side of the battery, it's very possible. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, my mechanic said he's tested everything. He said he had a good ground and good positive when he put it on the machine or whatever,
And Jeff, in defense,
and he changed the connectors out.
Yeah, in defense of the technician, I will tell you something that happens with people when they're working on a car. When they're testing an item, they're testing it at that moment in time.
Yep.
When you're driving the car, of course, you're adding heat, you're adding vibration, you're adding weather conditions, and all of these other factors are involved.
Yeah.
And they may not be able to test it at that particular time. Now, every now and then a technician gets lucky with intermittent problems, and while they're testing it, it's at the point that's broke. But
well, we've even seen them where, an engine mount will be weak and pull real tight on the ground.
Exactly. There's so many factors that can make something show up good in a shop but bad somewhere else. Now, usually that would be found during a voltage drop test, even if it wasn't doing it. But I'm not saying it would every time.
That's
because
right.
I have checked things and know that I've checked them myself,
right,
and 5 minutes later they be bad. So things like that do happen.
They do.
Right.
But the good news is you have your MR2 back.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He said that the alternator was bad. It was surging too much, so he replaced that.
Mm-hmm.
Thought that might be it, but then it was still doing the same thing. But the only thing is now the check engine light's on, and they don't make a test machine that goes back to 1986. So
yeah, that's a manual testing procedure.
That's called a paperclip.
Yeah, paperclip.
That's what my mechanic said.
The blinking lights.
Flashes. Right.
Yeah. You know what I do, Jeff? I think if that joker runs good and feels good and safe, dependable, I'd just drive it.
I'd just check and make sure the engine's back there and drive it.
I would ignore that check engine light right now and just enjoy that car because you deserve it, and tell and you need to let your wife know that you're thankful that she fixed the MR2.
Oh, she reminds me of that.
Oh,
guy.
I know she will. Yeah.
Yeah, she said I have to come out and do. Well, she always tells me I have to do things myself. So. But I did want to mention one more thing. My and I won't name the dealership, but I had a Dodge Challenger, and this is something for people to know that my air conditioner was going out, and they told me it was the box on the driver's side, whatever that air thing was.
Right.
Well, I fixed that, and then I come back, and it was still doing the same thing. Within a couple of days, it was doing the same thing. Then they told me it was the passenger side. And so I replaced that. So after $1,500 later, it still wasn't fixed because it was still doing it. But what they tell me is a lot of these mechanics, when they come out of school, they go straight to that source and attack it and don't look internally at anything else. You kind of find out was something behind that you had to go digging deeper into the dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, they didn't charge me for that. I'm not sure the boxes were bad now, but anyway, you should always make sure that the mechanic goes deep into it and make sure it's not a more internal problem that's causing the external problem.
Oh, wow. He's going to have to, wow. You continue listening to the show.
That's right.
You'll love that. It fits in very nicely.
Yeah.
That's right. Because I just want to tell you, I'm thankful to you guys and appreciate everything you did and trying to help me with that problem.
Well, we want to say thank you for calling in and giving us an update. We appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks,
all right, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Man, that was great. I love getting feedback on cars.
That was great.
Okay, we got time to go to Eddie?
We do. We got it about 2 minutes before a break.
Well, let's do it. Eddie, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Well, thank you guys for having me on the show. I actually got two problems. I have a 1990 Jeep Wrangler YJ.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the 2.5-liter four-cylinder in it.
Mm-hmm.
First problem is my turn signal, when I turn the lever down to make a left-hand turn, it basically what it does is it works when it wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if there's some kind of contact points in there or if that whole assembly would have to be replaced.
Yeah. And I was thinking what we might do, if you don't mind, Eddie, is go ahead and tell us the second problem on the gas gauge, and then that way Dominic is our research department also, and John Ryan and Dominic and myself, we can all concentrate on this question while we're on a break. What's the gas gauge doing?
Well, the gas gauge, if you feel the tank completely full, it'll go up to full, and then as you drive around and use the fuel out of the tank, it stays at the fuel point all the way up until you get about halfway usage, and then it starts going to 3/4, and then by the time it gets to half, the tank is empty, but the gauge is reading it to half.
We got it.
All right,
and
we're
that's
gonna put you
a
on
1990 Jeep Wrangler, and we will be back to talk more with Eddie and talk more about how to find a shop that's right for you just after these messages.
Just an old half-ton short bed Ford my uncle bought new in '64. Daddy got it right cause the engine was smoking.
And welcome back to the C&C Auto Show and professionally run establishments. We'll have courteous and a helpful staff, and the manager or the service advisors or the technicians will be willing to answer all of your questions that you might have. So when you go into a shop, you want to find a shop that's willing to communicate with you, willing to answer all of your questions that you have, and you want to feel comfortable when you're having work done that you're getting, that you know what's being done.
Right,
and,
absolutely.
And warranties and all of the other things. John Ryan, we were talking to Eddie, and Eddie has a 1990 Jeep with a turn signal issue and a gas gauge issue. And Eddie, I got to admit, we started talking about a whole bunch of other stuff, and but I think we already pretty much knew about what to say on the turn signal and gas gauge.
The only reason I felt like I knew the answer is because I had an '87 that both same problem. So
your '87 had all of these hyped up stuff in it, though, John Ryan.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it still had regular turn signals and a regular gasket. No, it did have a fuel cell in it.
All right, what do you think the turn signals?
Well, the turn signals. I was going to ask Eddie if do the turn signals actually cancel? Do you know what I mean by that? If you turn them left, and then you make the left-hand turn, do they kick back off also?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so I was just curious because I'll tell you what happened on mine. My turn signal cam broke. The little cam that actually returns the wand, I guess if you want to call it that, and it shorted the contacts. But regardless, that switch is just a really simple switch. However, the contacts on it just eventually wear.
And what I'm thinking, and also the plastic in
plastic
there gets
breaks.
hard and brittle.
Yep.
And that's what I was going to ask you. When you push the turn signal down or up, does it feel a little mushy feeling instead of having a nice click when it goes?
No, it has a real nice click to it.
Okay. And no lights come on the dash when it does this? In other words, it's like as if you never even move the arm, or does anything come on and just don't blink or something?
Well, it's just a left-hand signal. When you push the lever down,
Right.
it clicks in place. It doesn't have any kind of mushy feeling like you were saying. The light on the dash will barely blink real quick, and then it doesn't turn. It doesn't signal for turn on the dash, and I don't get anything on the outside of it.
Right.
But it doesn't do it all the time. It's kind of hit or miss.
Gotcha. I still feel like it's probably in that switch area. You probably remember this, Eddie. The hazard switch, the actual four-way switch?
Of course.
Put that on and off a few times. Sometimes that will actually not necessarily clean the contacts, but it can actually work. They use a weird dielectric grease on that switch. You remember that, Aaron? That it almost becomes like just so hard and brittle.
Yeah, it does.
To where it can actually lift the contacts and not, switch it. So that I still lean towards that switch
And Eddie,
myself.
I can tell you what I would be doing if it was my personal car before I got into bigger stuff. Because, see, technicians are the same way with everybody else. We don't want to do stuff to our car unless we have to.
Right.
I would probably take a little dielectric spray or electrical spray with a little nozzle on it and stick it up through there, and I'd go.
Well, I mean, even brake clean first, to clean the contacts. That wouldn't hurt anything, especially in a Jeep.
And then I would kind of work it up and down like John Ryan mentioned on the hazard switch. I'd push it in and out a few times. Now, if all that fails, then you're going to get into some checking some stuff like finding out if when you move that switch, you're going to need a wiring diagram to know if it's sending power out the wire that goes to the flasher, because you could even have a flasher issue. But usually that would be both sides and not just one. But I believe I would shoot a little spray in there just to see how it did. It's not going to hurt anything.
Eddie, the only bad thing about the switch is that it's a little bit involved as far as switching it. There's a little tool you have to have. Once you remove the steering wheel, of course, you have to have a puller for that. There's another tool there that is basically for the feature to remove, when you turn the steering wheel and it locks, when the key's off. There's a little plate there that you have to remove that's under spring pressure. And then the worst part about it is rerouting the new wire all the way down. There's a series, probably 10 wires that is connected to that switch, and it's a very tight clearance trying to get that wire down there. Do you plan on fixing that yourself?
Well, that's
until you just talked to me, was.
Well, I was just going to give you a tip. If you do plan on switching it out yourself, before you take that old one out, cut the wires off at the switch, and then you can actually zip tie the new switch to the old wires, and then when you pull the old wires out, it will pull the new wires in. Otherwise, you will learn a lot of cuss words.
Oh,
I understand that point. I've done a lot of work on this Jeep, and I've learned some new words myself.
For sure. As far as the gas gauge is also a very common item on those. There's, of course, a sending unit in the tank, and the sending units, they have a little, basically they work off of resistance, and a high resistance would be high fuel, low resistance would be low fuel. And just like you said, the sending unit, of course, sends the signal to it. Is the gauge needle, when you physically turn the key on, don't move anywhere, does the needle go all the way up if it's full?
I believe so, yes.
It does, yeah, because that kind of indicates that the gauge is functioning, because it can make a full sweep from empty to full. My suspicion would be the sending unit in the tank
on that
itself.
model, the sending units are not very expensive at all, are they?
Well, the best part about it is they're accessible without dropping the tank.
Yeah, Eddie, I believe what I would consider doing, because by far the most likely thing is that sending unit, instead of trying to check resistance and all that. If that is one of those cheap sending units to buy, I would plug it in without taking anything off the car.
Right, and sweep it.
Just plug it in and then get someone to look at it. Make sure your emergency brake's on and all that good stuff. But
absolutely,
but get under there and move the float in all the different ways, and then from up to down, down to up, in between, and make sure that it would function if it had a good sending unit. Then that way, when you put the new one in, you know that it'll be right.
Right.
I've got you. Well, I appreciate the advice, guys.
All right, no problem. Hope
well, we appreciate the phone call.
Thank you.
Hey, and let us know how that turns out.
I will. It'll probably be after Christmas before I get time to work on it. But I'll call you guys back once I
oddly
get
enough,
on it.
We'll still remember it.
Yeah, we will.
And I do appreciate the tip about the dielectric spray going into the switch. Maybe that'll work, and
worth
maybe
the shot.
Brake cleaner to clean all that gunk out. It's worth the shot. It's accessible. I can see it.
Right.
It's just I've seen some YouTube tutorials on replacing those, and kind of look a little bit over my head of what I really wanted to get into. So I wanted to kind of get your advice of what you thought.
Oh, Eddie, you could do it if you had the two special tools and just took your time, honestly.
All right.
Eddie, one last question. Do you leave this one out without the top on it and the doors, occasionally?
Very occasionally do I leave it without the top and doors, but I have an emergency cover that I put over it.
Okay.
Just about every time I drive it. I put my hard top on through the wintertime.
Right.
But then, like during the summer and spring and early fall, I always put the emergency top on to keep rain from getting down in there.
Gotcha. That's what I was going to say. There was the possibility of it getting wet even once, 10 years ago, whatever. And, even that could cause the moisture on the contacts. So I would do just like Aaron said, try cleaning it out a little bit and hope that takes care of it.
But, yeah, I appreciate it. I've had this Jeep for about 3 years now. And before that, I can't say what kind of care was taken care of it because it didn't look the best in the world when I got it. I've done a lot of work to it to kind of try to keep care of it, put a lot of TLC in it.
Well, that's great.
But I appreciate it, guys. I really do.
All right.
Very
Thanks,
nice.
Eddie.
Thank you for the call, Eddie.
Thank you.
Okay, the number to call is 706-863-5800, and that's Saturday mornings 8:05 to 10 Eastern Time. And we will go ahead and go to a real quick tech tip quiz. And, of course, the winner will receive a great prize package, which includes the I Answered the C&C Auto Show shirt.
That's right.
Golf shirt. Miss Glass put wiper blades on her 2014 Buick LaCrosse on March 17th, 2016. They worked perfect until November 11th, 2017. How can the wipers work perfect and then be bad in one day? If you know the answer, give us a call. The number is 706-863-5800, 8:05 to 10 Eastern. And, John Ryan, we're going to cover a few things that has to do with with finding the shop that's right for you. And
then we'll go to Paul.
Then we'll go straight to Paul. Look for a shop that's tidy and well organized. Before you go spend money at a shop, go visit the shop. Look around, and if it looks like they're tidy and organized and the tools look clean, the equipment's clean, chances are if they take care of their equipment, they'll most likely take care of your equipment.
Absolutely.
You ready to go to the calls?
I am. Let's go to Paul.
Hello, Paul. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Hey, how are you? I purchased my 2013 Ford F-150 Lariat about 5 months ago from a local dealership, and I didn't have any problems with it. And I had the oil change a couple of months ago, and I had it inspected by the Ford dealership, and they said, you got a little water leakage on your water pump. And I'm like, okay. And the gentleman told me it could be 2 days, 2 months, 2 weeks. And I said, okay, that's fine. So this week, I noticed I had a leakage under my truck, and I'm like, okay, here we go. So I took it in the Ford dealer, explained to him what was going on, and in the meantime, for the first time, my low oil pressure light is coming on my gauge.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got it's less than 99,000 miles, and like I said, I bought it secondhand dealer. And
Paul, what year was it? What year was it, Paul?
2013.
Hey, Paul, can we put you on the hold real quick so we can go through the break so we can answer that question?
Okay, sure.
All right.
All right, we're going to be right back with more of the C&C Auto Show.
Now his guitar's Cadillac, hillbilly music, lonely, lonely streets I call home.
And as you're looking for the shop that is right for you, it's a good idea. We mentioned the Google reviews. We mentioned referral from a friend. Also, it wouldn't be a bad idea to consult things like the Better Business Bureau, Chamber of Commerce. Just do a little background check about the reputation of the shop. And there's a lot of good sites that you can do that with.
Doesn't hurt to also, do something simple in the beginning too. For instance, like an oil change rather than something major.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all right, let's go back to Paul.
We were talking to Paul. He's got a 2013 Ford. They told him he needed a water pump. A little short period of time later, his oil pressure light come out.
Right.
Come on.
Right. It says low oil pressure. It's a yellow light on the display. But I look at my needle on my oil pressure needle, John, and it's normal.
Paul, the only question we have is it specifically says low oil pressure. It doesn't say change oil or anything like that.
Nope, sure doesn't.
And the gauge is showing good.
I had it changed the same week that I bought it. Like I said, in the summer, July.
Right.
And I took it that trip to West Virginia, brought it back, no problems, no leakage under the engine, nothing, no oil anywhere. and just all of a sudden, after I had my oil changed, the light popped on, and it's only at idle, but as soon as I hit the accelerator, it'll go off.
Paul, here's what I'm going through, and I realize I should know what that light is, but believe it or not, technicians will every now and then glance in an owner's manual also. We do that. I'm going to go ahead and admit it. Now, what's a little bit
yellow is throwing me off
is a light that says low oil pressure that is yellow. I have never seen that. A low oil pressure light is always red, and of course, requires emergency action.
Well, it looks like it could be red, John. Like I said, it's a 2013. I don't know. It just pops up on my display in between my speedometer and my RPM gauge.
Right, in the little information window or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And have you looked at your owner's manual, and it does say that means oil pressure and get immediate help or something like that?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. When I took it in this week to get my my oil pump replaced, and they replaced the T-hose and all the hoses, I asked them to look at it, and they never said anything about it. And then yesterday, when I was stopping at fast food place, it popped back on, but as soon as I touched the accelerator, it went right off.
Wow, that definitely does sound like a normal characteristics of low oil pressure.
Yeah, it does. But unfortunately, that sounds like a characteristic of an oil pressure issue of one of two things. Either the engine is idling too low and not generating enough speed. In other words, that could be things like carbon buildup causing a low idle, or actual engine wear, because when you have one like that and you rev it up and
Paul,
it goes off.
Which engine's in this? Is this an EcoBoost or what is this?
Yes, it's the EcoBoost 6.0.
Okay. Huh. That is so weird.
And it's like I said, it's never happened until after I had my oil changed. And then when I mentioned to the tech at the dealership, he said, "Oh, you shouldn't have taken it there. Bring it to your." I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go."
Paul, have you checked the oil out of curiosity?
Yes.
And it's full for sure.
As soon as the light came on, I pulled off to the side of the road, pulled the oil stick out, cleaned it off, put it back. Normal oil pressure. It's honey colored.
Right.
Paul, I think
I'm thinking, okay.
If you look in your owner's manual, it does say that is a yellow light and use caution. I believe I would take that truck and have someone else change the oil, or the same place, but tell them to be sure. The oil weight is critical. What's that one take? 5W20, John Ryan?
13. Yeah, that should be right.
If they put a little thicker oil in there, then it should call for that. Can do some unusual stuff with oil pressure. And then I always like to do the cheapest things first, and that would be the cheapest thing to do.
Right.
But I would also do some research on that on that oil pressure. And during the show, we will be doing more research on it ourselves. So if you don't mind, stay tuned to the show.
I just had a question, Paul. I hate to keep harassing you about the light. Tell us just a little bit more about it. It's a yellow message like that spells it out, low oil pressure. Is that correct?
Right. And it even gives the oil lamp symbol.
Okay.
And it says low oil pressure, and it could be red. It could be yellow. I don't really.
Does it ever show like a picture of a wrench or anything like that?
Nope, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll do just that. We're going to kind of maybe during the next break, it'll probably be on the next hour show, kind of go sort through our information sources and see if we can't come up with something else for you. If you do, if we do start talking about it, just give us a call back if you don't mind.
And I would gather information myself. Look in your owner's manual and ensure what the light means, and also ensure what weight and quantity that oil uses. That way when you go to get the oil change, you can say, I want to make sure I get the correct weight and quantity of oil in this truck.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you this one more question before I get off the line with you.
Sure.
I had the standard regular oil put in it. Would you recommend synthetic? I mean, I know it's a little more expensive, but I want my truck to last.
With this issue, I believe I would, especially with you having an EcoBoost. I kind of lean toward it myself. What do you think, John Ryan?
I lean either way. I mean, I know I'm just thinking mechanically, like a mechanical mind. If water was in there, it still should have the same amount of oil pressure. But yes, I mean, as far as lubricating, yes, it would probably be a better benefit.
I believe with EcoBoost, normally anything to do with turbo, I normally like to see full synthetic.
Right.
Okay. All right, I appreciate you guys.
And it does have the 3.5. Is that what you said?
The 3.5?
Yeah. EcoBoost?
No, 6.6. It's a 6.0.
In the Ford F-150? Yeah, the options will be 3.5, 5 liter, or 6.2.
Oh, it's a 6.0, according to my owner's manual.
Okay. Well, either way, we'll still do some more research on it.
All right, I'll be listening, guys.
All right,
Appreciate
sounds
it.
great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. John Ryan, can we
Yes.
grab one more? One more?
If you're fast,
We're going to be fast.
let's go over to Victor.
Hey, Victor, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and we got a few minutes, and we would love to try to help. What can we help with?
Good morning, Aaron, and John. I enjoy your program very much. I'm from out of town, but recently I had a check engine light come on. I took it into my mechanic, and I was getting the car ready to make the trip here and, change the oil, rotate the tires, and all that stuff. But anyway, in-check engine light came on, and they checked it for me, and they said the code was 0046 or 0042, which is an emissions thing. And they couldn't fix it. They said it's a dealer thing. Anyway, they reset it, so I hopped in my truck, and drove here, which is about 650 miles, so not in one day, but anyway. And I got a hum system on by Verizon, gives a vehicle health check. Well, it was giving me the emissions warning, and now I checked it now for November the 7th is my last report, and everything is no alerts, all green, emissions, wiring, powertrain, coolant, everything. It gives you a complete rundown on the car.
Right.
The guy told me that probably if I put too much gas in it, which I did, that guy called earlier had done the same thing, and I overfilled it one time, and my mechanic said, these things are so smart, sometimes if you leave the door open while you're refueling it, the light will come on. So...
Yeah, Victor, that sounds like you're kind of on the right track. I mean, especially with you having said that you drove it home, 600 miles. That vehicle has a evap monitor, and it has several what they call readiness tests. And normally to run that system, it takes many drive cycles, if you're driving that vehicle that amount of distance, all those drive cycle tests probably have been satisfied, and it ran the test and found that the problem was no longer there. So with that being said, it could be something as simple as the fuel cap was, in fact, loose after a refill. The system ran its test, and then it was happy with the results and turned that code off. So right now, just to be sure, you don't have any trouble lights or anything, correct?
Nothing. And the hum system of the Verizon hum gives me a code of P0456.
Okay.
But that's been satisfied, evidently. It gave me 2 warnings in
right. 456 is
7th.
very, very small leak is what that code indicates. So I'm kind of still leaning towards possibility of a gas cap.
Yeah.
And Victor, we're all out of time. We hope that
I don't have a gas cap.
Oh, that's right. It's fuel filler. I mean, that's still a very possible issue. That didn't seal quite right.
Okay. We are out of time. Want to tell him welcome to the area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you visiting the area. Okay, we're out of time. We'll be back with more of the C&C Auto Show very shortly. And a big hello goes out to all of you wonderful car lovers, and welcome to the C&C Auto Show. And I am Aaron Clements.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are here to give you information on ways to make your car, truck, or SUV safer, to make it more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle. And we do that by taking your phone calls. That's 8:05 to 10 Saturday mornings. And the number is 706-863-5800. And we want to say thank you to each and every one of you that tuned in or logged in. You can listen and learn more about your car and this show at ccautoshow.com. And if you're looking for a good, dependable repair facility, either on the road, having an emergency or something like that, or you want to build a relationship with one that's in your area, you can also go to ccautoshow.com. You can scroll down. There's a place that says Find a Shop. You can do a little search on the Find a Shop area, and you can pick out the one that's right for you. And speaking of right for you, finding the shop that's right for you is the theme for today's show. And on today's show, we'll be talking about what to look for in a good automotive repair facility, and that's whether you're on the road or having an emergency or whatever, you will be able to pick out the shop that can service your needs. So let's buckle up and let's do one of the things that we enjoy doing the very most on the show. And what is that, John Ryan?
Well, that'd be answering the calls.
Exactly. And where are we going?
Let's go to Philip.
Hey, Philip, welcome to the C&C Auto Show. And what can we help you with?
Yes, sir. I've got a problem with a 2001 Ford Explorer. Ford F-150.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems as if I'm kind of stumped on this, that the power windows will not work at all. I don't hear any clicking. I don't hear any sound when you press the power window buttons. And it also has a dome light that's not working. None of the interior lights work. And I've gone through and checked every fuse on the vehicle.
Okay.
And all the fuses seem to be intact as well.
Philip, is this a single cab truck, quad cab truck, or full four doors?
It has the two front doors and then the two small side doors that open after you open the front doors. I guess
so as far as electric windows, it's only got the two front windows, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and both the windows do not work, just to be sure, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then the door ajar lights on also?
Yeah, the door lights. None of the door lights work. The little display in the middle above the rear view mirror does not work.
Okay.
Everything else works fine. All the electric, the radio, all the headlights, the wipers, everything else seems normal. It's just the power windows and the dome lights and that display. But I've pulled out the door window switches and I've checked them with a meter, and there's no 24 volts, no power at there. But the door locks work. The door locks have power. I get 12 volts at the door locks, but not at the window switch.
Okay, gotcha. Did this just all of a sudden happen one day, or was it an intermittent problem at one point, or did it just boom, shut up, just stop working?
I bought the vehicle used, but the guy told me that's what happened. He said all of a sudden they just stopped working.
Okay.
And not sure how long ago that was.
Right. I have two suspicions. Let's see if we're on the same track here.
All right, here we go. We're gonna work with this and see if we're on the same page.
Well, I've got two. So
I got an idea too. I only have one right now.
All right, my first one right now is what we call the umbilical cord, where the door pivots.
Ooh.
And of course, the wiring harness obviously goes to the door. I'm gonna go ahead and mention my second one.
On the same page.
My second one would be the gym module, but I really kind of lead towards more of the first one
because of it being intermittent.
Right.
Yeah.
The Philip, the reason I kind of lean that way is because, like you said, you don't have a power source. You don't have 12 volts at the switch itself, which regardless, you should have 12 volts at the switch. I mean, the switch is always hot, obviously with the key on. And you've already checked all the fuses. Just out of curiosity, did you check the fuses with a test light, or did you remove them?
I actually removed it.
Okay.
I removed the fuse and checked them that way.
One thing, Aaron could tell you a whole story about as far as why we normally don't recommend that. One thing that may be a benefit to you is buy a very inexpensive test light at, say, Napa.
I think we're going to need to update our recommendation on that. Instead of a cheap test light, if you like to work on cars very much yourself, go ahead and get a LED test light. That way, if for some reason you touch it to a computer-controlled part, you won't blow it. Now, if you only going to use it for checking fuses and a battery, then that's fine. But if you work on a car a lot, go ahead and invest in a decent LED test light.
That's right. So, Philip, what we would do is check the fuses, of course, with a test light. And to do that, of course, on the top of a fuse, it has two little access points to the fuse. And ideally, if a fuse is good and the key is on, it will light up on both sides of the fuses. So that's how you do that. But I guess aside from that, the issue is that door opens and closes a million times, obviously, in the length of the time the vehicle was born.
1.2.
1.2 million. So those wires bend every single time. And what we see a lot, especially on the Fords around that year model, is the wires would break right in that umbilical because of the pivot. Of course, it's like bending a wire a million times. So that would be my suspicion. One way to find that out is, of course, you can pull the little umbilical cord back. And normally it's either the power or the ground wire, mainly because both of those actually get hot with current. So when they're hot and the door opens and stuff like that, they can become brittle and just simply break. So that would be my suspicion. The only other reason I said gym module was because you mentioned about the door ajar. If that computer's smart enough to know that if it sees a door ajar open all the time, you're still driving it down the road, it'll actually switch the function off of the dome light so that it won't kill the battery. It's called an accessory power relay. You know, the dome light, I'm sure you've noticed even on new vehicles, if you leave it on, you come back the next morning, it's off. Well, the car's smart enough to detect that it was left on.
Okay.
So you got some more checking to do, don't
you?
you?
And I would go through those fuses one more time with a test light, either a regular test light or LED, just to be on the safe side, because sometimes a fuse can look good but actually be blown. If you test it with a test light, you're pretty much sure it's going to be okay unless it's a bad connection in there.
Right.
If you got power on one side and power on the other side, you know that it's passing current through it. So recheck the fuses, and then as far as checking that other part, you can hook your voltmeter to that power wire, and if it don't have power, wiggle that
umbilical
wiring,
cord, yeah.
that wiring.
We call it umbilical cord. I mean, it's just a wiring harness.
I can't say umbilical cord. Okay, but wiggle that, and if the power comes there, then you would know that that's where your problem is also. So either way, it'll be good.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic questions.
Yeah, we hope that
Philip.
helps, Phillips. If anything else, just let us know.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, the number to call, 706-863-5800 if you got a question about your car, truck, or SUV, and that is going to be from 8:05 to 10 Eastern time. And John,
we got 2 minutes before a break. Let's get Gail's question.
I'm ready. Hello, Gail. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm calling on behalf of my sister. She has a 2001 Honda Accord, and when she drives her car, it's slow in changing gear.
So it don't feel like it's got very much power in it, and it
yes,
kind of drags before it actually changes into the next gear.
Yes, yes, that's what she says.
Gail, any kind of trouble lights on or anything like that?
Well, her check engine light came up, but we also discovered she needed a new battery, so she got that yesterday.
Okay.
And it's running fine. But now she says she still noticed that problem.
Okay, well, great. Gail, is it okay if we put you on hold through the break so we can answer that question?
That's fine. I'll finish cooking my breakfast. Go ahead.
All right, thanks.
Okay, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we return, we'll be talking to Gail and answering a question there. And we'll also be covering a few more tips that has to do with finding a shop that's right for you. That and a lot more as soon as we return on the C&C Auto Show.
I've been driving all night, my hands wet on the wheel. There's a voice in my head that drives my heel. It's my baby calling, says I need you here.
And welcome back to the C&C Auto Show. And we mentioned in a previous show about how checking the reviews, getting a referral from a friend or a family member on finding a shop that's right for you. And, of course, one of the things you might want to try out the shop first. Just go in and have something small done. Maybe have an oil change or something. And that'll give you a chance to talk to the shop, find out if you can communicate well with them, and if you look around, everything looks good. And that way,
if you go in there and get an oil change and your car falls off the rack, that kind of says
everything.
everything.
Then you know that might not be the best one. But that'll give you a chance to find out if that's a shop that you feel comfortable with.
And
okay.
We were talking to Gail about her Honda. Let's go back to the phone.
We were. Okay, Gail, you mentioned that the Honda did not seem to have much power. John, Ryan and I were wondering, does it sound like the engine is revving up, but it's not going?
Like
or
the
it
engine's
like
working really hard?
Bogging down?
No.
It just seems to just flat out not have enough power.
Right.
Okay.
And I asked her, is it when we live on a slight hill, if she has problems going down the hill? And she's like, no, that's all fine. But when she starts driving and just to say stop at the light or stop at the stop sign, she said it's hard. It takes it a while, a couple of seconds to get in gear.
Does the vehicle run smoothly, like it's not shaking or anything like that at idle?
No, it's running. It's fine.
Okay, so it's just a low power
Gail,
condition.
the key word that you had there was you mentioned that sometimes it didn't feel like it was going right into gear. I wonder if when it is this a little bit worse when the engine is cold And does it have kind of like a bump when it finally goes and takes off?
That I can't tell you. I was trying to get her to tell you guys because I know you're good, but she sort of backed up and left the room. So,
well, what I was wondering, here's what I would recommend doing. When you mention it takes a second to go in gear, that's a symptom of low transmission fluid. I would definitely have the transmission fluid checked, and if the level is low, then have some fluid added to it. But also the smell and look of transmission fluid tells you a lot about the transmission fluid. If it's real dark and got a burnt smell, that's not good. If the fluid looks reasonably well, and especially if it looks well and kind of low, you may find that that'll take care of part of that. Now, other things that can cause lack of power is things like air filter, fuel filter, or
the tune-up stuff,
or a catalytic converter, tune-up items. Any one of those can cause a lack of power, but I would, because of you mentioned that takes a second to go into gear, I would start with that transmission fluid because that fluid level is critical.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this. I know my dad always tells me to check the tailpipe. And I noticed with hers when she pulled it out of the garage, it was some fluid in the tailpipe, underneath where the tailpipe is at. And I touched it, and it was clear, but it felt kind of oily.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably condensation.
Uncommon.
That sounds okay.
Yeah, you get water condensation in an exhaust system, and because of it being a lot of carbon coming through there, it'll feel a little bit oily. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, once it warms up, you'll probably notice that going away.
All right, then she's using my car.
Yeah, what I would start with on this car is start with the very cheapest things
and
that
basics,
you can think of, maintenance items. And that is fluid levels. That's the transmission fluid, the coolant level, the oil level. Is the oil due to be changed? Is it due for a tune-up? Is the air filter good or bad? All of those, what's good about those things is even if it turns out to be something else wrong, if they're bad, they would need to be done anyway so you're not wasting money. And you stand a chance on that solving your problem.
All right. Then I have one quick question on my car. Where do you know where I can get the hooks, the little pins that stick inside the door to hold the rubber in the doors?
Oh, the weather strip molding?
Weather strip molding. Yeah, I need the pins.
The little green pins that kind of secure it?
Yes.
Yes, of course, the dealership does have those. They actually have those in stock because that's so common. But there are some aftermarket sources, too. They would probably just have to order them. Now, I know Napa can get them for you. I mean, of course, they're a good place to check also. They may have some in stock.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's a Napa up on Washington Road.
Yes.
There is.
Sure.
All right. So then I'll check that out also. And I think for my car, I mean, I do tune-ups. I listen to you guys like every Saturday. It seems like whenever a problem comes up on my car, somebody calls in. And so based on what you tell them, that I go solve my problem.
Yeah.
But it's just her car.
Which is a problem because that means she's driving your car.
Well, my car is safe. My car is fine because I listen to yours. But, okay, so then I'll tell her to do that. And if possible, let her find another mechanic if she's not happy with where she's going.
Yeah, it'd be good to find somebody that she trusts and feel good about, and tell her to get her to tune in and listen to the show, and we'll be covering more tips on finding the shop that she might like.
I trust me, I will.
Okay.
Thank you all.
All right,
thank you,
All
Gail.
right, bye.
Okay, number to call, 706-863-5800, 805 to 10 Eastern time. And where we're going, John Ryan?
Let's go to Daniel, Aaron. We've got just about 2 minutes before a break, and we'll put him on hold.
Hello, Daniel. Welcome to the C&C Auto Show. What can we help
good morning.
with?
How are y'all? I have a trailer. The passenger side light was not working. So looking at the wires, they were starting to get a little age to them, so I ended up a little bit dry rot on them. So I ended up rewiring my whole trailer. And now I've noticed that, I grounded all my wires on the trailer. And I noticed now when I plug it into my truck, the lights work all fine when my lights on the truck are not on. But as soon as my nighttime lights kick on, the passenger side goes back to not working again. So I did find a fuse that was blown in my fuse box under the hood, but still trying to figure out, and I replaced that, and it's still having the issue the only other thing I know would be to check would be my wiring harness connector from where the trailer connects to the truck. Would that be true, or is there anything else I'm missing?
Daniel, is this a GM by any chance?
That's right, 2012 Sierra.
Yeah, so you're right. They do have a fuse that individually controls each light. Oh, actually, we're about to take time. Daniel, can we put you through the break real quick? Thanks.
Yep.
All right. It is time to take a real quick break. When we return, we'll be going back to Daniel, and then we'll be covering more on how to find a shop that's right for you. That and more with the C&C Auto Show as soon as we return. And welcome back to the C&C Auto Show. We were talking with Daniel. He has some trailer lights on his vehicle, and they were doing all kind of weird stuff.
They were.
Yeah, and John Ryan was giving some ideas on what might be happening.
Yeah, but I had a few more questions. Daniel, you're back on the air. As far as, like you said, when the daytime running lights come on, did you say the passenger rear light does not work? Is that correct?
When my regular daytime running lights are on the Sierra running, my lights work fine on the trailer as far as brakes and blinkers.
Okay.
But when my nighttime lights come on, when it goes dark, that's when I go back to having a problem with that passenger side. It don't even work at all, no brake or blinker. So
okay. And as far as your trailer, when you rewired it, you've got a brown wire back there on the right-hand side, and then you should have a green wire on the right-hand side.
That's correct.
Have you checked to see if there is power going to the plug on those two wires? If that makes sense.
I have, and I actually have another GM Tahoe, and hooked the trailer up to that. The Tahoe, everything works fine.
Okay, good.
So I know it's an issue with the truck.
Okay, so the fuse that you replaced the first time, what was it for? Was it for parking light, stop? I know, they're individually marked, so you have a right and a left. Do you know which fuse it was?
I replaced the passenger side the blinker light.
Blinker light, okay. So
and it was blown.
Okay.
And I actually ended up going in, and while I was in there, I just ended up replacing all the trailer fuses.
Okay.
To make sure everything was good.
Was good, yep. By any chance, of course, you're using a 4-way trailer plug, right?
That's right, yep.
And then you're using the adapter to go to a 7-way?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Do you have a test light?
I do not.
Or a meter or anything to check power. If you look at that 7-way trailer plug, if you take all your stuff out of there, adapter and all, it actually shows a diagram of what wire does what. I don't know if you've noticed that. You can check power right there at that. That would be a good indication. So we obviously know it's the truck because your Tahoe does fine with it. We could check power there, and then if there's not power there, they're just above that, almost behind the spare tire, there's a trailer light module. And the module is basically what sends the signal out to the tail lights and the brake lights and all that kind of stuff. And what's really kind of making me think it might be that is the fact that the scenario of when your regular lights are on, or your daytime lights are on, it works, and then when your regular lights cut on, it doesn't. Because we want to turn the lights on and see if there's voltage going out of that trailer module to the plug. So the fuse box goes all the way back down the frame rail up to the module, then the module goes out to the plug. So we want to see if the module's bad. Is this a truck that you use in the woods or in the dirt, I guess, if you want to call it?
It does get a little dirty.
It does. The only reason I asked that, I know it sounds like a random question, but we've actually seen those connectors get debris in them just because of their location.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that it could have debris in the connector, and of course causing the not to send power out there. So look real close in that area. I don't quote me, but I believe it's the blue wire, if I remember correctly, for the right side, and a yellow wire for the left side. But you would want to check and make sure it has 12 volts, with the lights on.
And that's connecting to the module.
That is correct.
Yeah. And does that go bad kind of regularly? Is that the common thing with GMs, or could it just be a plug thing?
I would say more so with GMs. We've replaced quite a few of them. I mean, they keep them in stock, so that tells you one thing for sure. And it's not a major expense. I mean, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have somebody run some tests on it. The only other thing I was going to recommend to you is you can get Napa sells them. You can get a 7-way adapter that actually lights up. I'm sure you've seen those before. And, when you turn the lights on, a lot of times it'll illuminate the LED that's, of course, on. And then that would eliminate your adapter, because we've seen adapters go bad. So, but, again, it works on your Tahoe, so we're kind of ruling that out.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like I'm centering my problem more so around my wiring harness, that kind of area in the module. So
Exactly.
I'll go there next.
Okay.
All right. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks.
Great question. Thank you, Daniel. And the number to call, 706-863-5800. Talking about things when you're finding a shop that's right for you, it's a good idea to find out what kind of warranties they normally offer.
Yeah.
Now, this would be just normal warranties, and you see anywhere from 12 months, 12,000 miles to 3 year, 36,000 miles. And you want to know that as you're going in. And also, you'll find out that individual jobs may have a different warranty. But check on those.
The only thing I'd add to that is it might be a good idea to ask for some literature on it too, not just word of mouth.
That would be a very good idea. Great point. Okay, where are we going, John Ryan?
Let's go over to Bill.
Hey, Bill, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with today?
Hey, y'all, good morning. I got a battery puzzler for you, if I may.
Sure.
Got into my Toyota Camry about 3 days ago, and it's pushing 250,000 miles, but everything's going well.
Beautiful.
And I noticed when I stepped into it that I heard this odd noise, like a ticking, like your battery would make if it was almost dead.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't even put the key in the ignition yet, so that baffled me. So I put the key in and tried to fire it up, but it was deader than Elvis, so that was a no-go. Got some jumper cables, fired it up, and everything has been fine since. Then, later in the day, just to be cautious, I went by an auto parts store and got the battery checked. And the gentleman there said the battery needed replacement and was just about toast. So I said, fine, I'll come see you tomorrow. Then, the next day, I was driving out. Everything was still working fine. I went to a different auto parts place to get a second opinion. And the gentleman there did a check and said the battery was fine. So I'm baffled. I'm happy because everything seems to work, but I am a little confused, number one, as to what the ticking sound was, and number two, how do you get two completely different diagnoses on a battery?
That's a great question. It's something we kind of deal with on a daily basis. I know Aaron does also. Batteries are very odd. They're probably one of the most weird things in an electrical system, being it's almost like the shock absorber for the electrical system. And batteries, the plates inside the batteries can make good contact. One morning that's say 50 degrees and the next morning that's 42 degrees, they might not make contact and have a completely dead cell in it. And then say if the battery's discharged, well, say if you drove all over town and then got it charged or checked, it might have showed fully charged because, of course, the alternator's doing its job and charging it up. So batteries are very odd to test. Now, one way that we have seemed to kind of narrow that down is by actually using a piece of equipment that physically load tests the battery. A lot of the battery testers that are kind of an over-the-counter type method only check the resistance in a battery, which is great. I mean, that gives you an idea what's wrong with the battery or, the state of charge of battery, but it doesn't take in I guess it doesn't put in the equation that this vehicle has a lot of electrical equipment and it doesn't load the battery itself just like the headlights would, the AC would, the starter would. So that's kind of the difference in testing, but you can have different results even with a load tester, mainly due to temperature. Do you know how old that battery was?
About 3 years, I'd say.
3 years.
So 3.5.
Normally we say if you're on
That's
4
not too
years,
uncommon. 3 years is not bad.
Yeah, normally around 4 years, we're our opinion is that you're kind of on borrowed time. I mean, even the very best of batteries last roughly that. Some last a little longer, just depends on their charging habits.
And Bill, you mentioned that you've already replaced the battery, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't think you did wrong doing that because so many – I have tested a battery 3 different times and get three different results
answers,
on there. Now, I also feel like there's a chance that you actually had the possibility of a bad connection there at that battery because a lot of times a connection will look fairly well, but we run a voltage drop test on it and find it's not a great connection. But still 3 years, if one person said it was bad, I lean toward doing it because it's there's no doubt that it's in 4 years it's going to be
right back
very,
there.
very questionable, and sooner or later going to leave you stranded. So I think you did the right thing going in and getting it, and that should square you away.
Sounds good. Any theory on the funky noise when I first got into the car? The tick, 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 tick.
Bill, where exactly did it come from? Did it come from in the dash, or did it come from out in the engine, or?
it sounded like the dash. I reached for the radio because I thought, okay, why is the radio or the CD player trying to play?
That's actually what I was going to say. CD player, there's two things in there that are kind of voltage specific and can do some kind of random stuff when they see a lower voltage since the battery was dead. When you hop in that car, of course, it wakes things up. Obviously, when it sees the door open, it's like, okay, somebody's getting in. So things like, body control module wakes up, all that kind of stuff. Well, if that CD actually the ejection mechanism that's in there, if it sees low voltage, it might be trying to spit the disc out. Same thing for the HVAC unit. It has electronically controlled temperature doors. They can click just like that. So I think you're in the right area, but I think the issue was low voltage.
Yeah, and low voltage just can keep things from going to sleep. A lot of times a vehicle don't go to sleep for about 2 or 3 minutes. And sometimes if the voltage is lower than it should, it may never go to sleep.
Because it doesn't
know. Of course, so you already had some low voltage, and then it don't go to sleep, and it drops down even more. So, yeah, I think your battery and the connections at your battery was more than likely your whole issue.
Gotcha. Well done. Thank y'all very much. I was completely flummoxed on that one.
Yeah, we really appreciate the call.
You bet. Thank y'all. All right.
Thanks, Bill. You. Okay, the number to call 706-863-5800. That's 8:05 to 10 Eastern time, and it is time for a break. And when we return, we'll be going to Joseph and Jim, and we'll be answering those questions. And also, we'll be giving some more tips on ways to find a shop that is right for you. That and more with the C&C Auto Show as soon as we return.
Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking.
Welcome back to the C&C Auto Show, and that's the Smokey and the Bandit song. We just finished one of those the other day.
I remember you told me that, yeah.
Customer very, very happy. They were very nice to work with also.
Yeah.
Turned out great. Okay. Number to call, 706-863-5800. That's 8:05 to 10 Eastern time. And John Ryan, where are we going to now?
Well, up next would be Joseph.
I think that is perfect. Joseph, welcome to the C&C Auto Show, and what can we help you with?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, on that door ajar problem, this is an 09 Focus, and it started like two years ago, now and then.
Uh-huh.
But first question, just a yes or no, can that computer be programmed to eliminate those door ajar?
No, unfortunately it can't. That's not in the customer preference file. Unfortunately,
okay.
not.
Yeah, there's probably some liability issue on those if they were to make it to where you cut those off.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to necessarily endorse this, but of course you could wire it differently to where it thought the doors were closed all the time, but yes.
Right. Well, you see, what I've run into with that car is first, it was just now and then, and then it got to where after the current's running through, say, a 40-mile trip,
Right.
Then it would start coming on, and then the chime would keep on ringing.
Dinging, yeah.
The alarm chime. So that finally quit. The chime quit. So then one day, this is not this summer, but last summer, I come out and got in the car and started it, and then the door ajar come on, so the interior lights come on up by the mirror.
Right.
So when I got home, well, I didn't have nothing to hook up to hold the 12 volts to it,
Mm-hmm.
So, I had to let the transmission reset next time I drove it. But that car, it don't cause major problems like some car, if you disconnect the battery.
Right.
But, so I took the bulbs out, and I hadn't put them in since. I can always use a flashlight or something.
Right.
And now that the problem is just now and then when the door ajar comes up, it doesn't stay on long. You might open the door one time and close it, and it'll go out.
Right.
Now everything's working normally, except I'm not putting those interior lights back in because I just don't really need them. So everything's functioning like it should, except about 3 weeks ago the gas cap light come on, and I just put a new locking gas cap on the car about 4 months ago.
Right.
So I kept the original in the trunk, which should have more wear on the gasket, and I put it on. Well, that come up about 2 other times, and I hadn't done it now for about a month, right?
Right.
So that's just another thing, But
Yeah, Joseph, on those locking gas caps, there's quite a few manufacturers that, have made some really good ones. But for whatever reason, and of course it's just my opinion, I've rarely seen one that seals off enough to where it will actually set an evap light. Yeah, I think the locking mechanism, it makes that design of the cap a little different than the OE one. No doubt, locking gas caps great, but two, it's kind of like hubcaps. You don't see anybody stealing hubcaps anymore.
Yeah.
But it hadn't done, I had one on, and then the lock cylinder went bad. It wanted to pull out of the cap,
Right.
So I got a different brand, and no problem. And then it's only done it a few times, and then not lasted very long. So I tried putting the original cap back on, which would have had more wear on the gasket, of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it didn't make no difference. But I'm not too concerned about it. But, I was just wondering, just taking those interior lights out, it just occurred to me, well, that's not going to cause any other problems, is it?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, basically what you're relieving is, of course, the battery drain, that if, say, the dome lights were on the whole time, of course, it would drain on the battery. Now, no doubt it's sending power up there, but if the power is not being used, it wouldn't be any amperage there. So what you did sounds fine, and it's definitely a temporary fix. I mean, of course, ideally, you would find out which door switch is bad and repair it, and then, of course, it would remedy all that. What you've done is fine.
Like Napa don't make the switch for those cars.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the whole lock
11s,
actuator.
But they make it for the earlier Focuses.
If you Joseph, if you determine which one it is, sometimes you can get up there at the switch part at that latch,
spray WD-40
and you can spray a little WD-40 on there.
I've done that. Yeah, that's one of the first things I tried. But. As long as it's not going to affect nothing else. But I got online and put in door ajar light stays on, and all kind of Fords come up.
Mm-hmm.
They seem like they take the cake when it comes to this kind of problems,
They are. Yeah. It's actually kind of it's not necessarily a bad design, but the switch is pointed in an upward position, so any dirt that falls on it falls right on the switch. A lot of the General Motors and some of the Chrysler products, the switch is in the downward position, so not much can, of course, stay on that switch. So that's what we see the most with them. But
yeah, and then as far as design flaws, there was one or two people that said they got the problem fixed, and then it reoccurred. Had the switch replaced. So
right, unfortunately,
I said,
some
I'm
cars,
not going to spend the money on that, and I would spend it on like maintenance, like transmission flush or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Minor stuff like that, I can use a flashlight for an interior light.
Or you can get one of those little things that flashlight that goes on your head to where.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
And then if you need it, you just reach up there and hit it.
All right, Joseph. Well, we appreciate.
One thing, how battery terminals can break contact and not be corroded.
Yes.
I suggest people carry a wrench that fits their battery terminals and some WD-40 and maybe some paper towels because. Okay, like September, what was that? I marked it on my manual. It's September the 5th. Headlights was bright, but it wouldn't start. So later on it started, and then once at the house, August 19th, turned the key, and it didn't start. So I got the WD-40 out and loosened them and really took some time and twisted them around, because I didn't want to have to let the transmission reset.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I ain't had the problem since, so just something like that could get you home,
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, making sure that
great.
But don't take the terminals off because some of those cars, when they lose their codes, you got, it's not going to run very good at all.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just twist them around. Mm-hmm. Don't remove them unless you got something to plug in to where they could test the code, to keep the current running through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, great, Joseph. Appreciate the call.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Thank you.
You too, Joseph. Thank you. And the number to call, 706-863-5800, 805 to 10 Eastern. And where we're going, John Ryan.
Going over to Jim, Aaron.
Hello, Jim, and welcome to the show. And what can we help you with?
Well, I've got a 04 Xterra V6 that I'm having the engine blew on it, and I'm having it rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
And the place that's rebuilding it told me that they don't remember which side of the engine, but one of the center pistons had a hole burned right through the middle of it, right through the center of the piston. And he said, hey, you want to be sure that your mechanic knows what's going on to resolve that, to keep it from happening again.
Okay.
And so what kind of stuff causes that?
Jim, I didn't catch the year. What year was this?
It's an 04.
04, that was one of the first years for 4-liter. Do you know if it's 4-liter or 3.3?
No, it's a 3.3. It's the VG33E.
Okay, gotcha. The only thing, did the timing belt ever jump or anything like that on it?
I don't know.
Well, you mentioned that the engine blew up. What exactly happened to the engine?
Well, my mechanic said it looked like it dropped a cylinder, which I don't really understand what that means.
Okay.
But we were driving at interstate speed, and all of a sudden, a lot of smoke and no power. And
right, which it does sound like that happened because, of course, it has a hole in the piston. Sure. The only reason I ask is if all of that happened, there's a possibility that the timing belt could have jumped, and, of course, a valve could go right in the top of the piston. So that's one scenario. Now, before that, was the engine running smooth, no misfires, no check engine light
or were you
flashing?
hearing any rattling noises going up hills?
No rattling noises, and as far as the history, I had just bought the vehicle, a month or so earlier. So my good luck.
Because, of course, misfire can, of course, definitely increase the cylinder head temperature inside of it. Aaron was mentioning, an EGR problem creating a lot of heat.
Exhaust gas for circulation.
So 2 of those are an option, but just the history on those. If the timing belt jumps like one tooth, it can actually contact the valves, can contact the tip of the pistons. Jim, we're all out of time. Is there any chance you could give us a call at the shop if you need some more information?
Yeah, sure can.
All right. Well, we appreciate it.
And the time clock's on E. We need to pull over for now, but we'll be back on the road in no time. I'm Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. Our show producers are Dominic Frito and Sandy Klein. Technical engineer Zach Llewellyn. And we would all like to say thank you for all of you that tuned in and logged in to ride with us on the C&C Auto Show.